The 58th chapter of the book of Yeshayah is one that is familiar, at least on Yom Kippur morning. And so it continues. The Haftorah for Yom Kippur starts actually in yesterday's chapter. Chapter 57 continues today. Kara v'garon al tachsoch kashofar harem kolecha v'haged la'ami pisham ulevet Yaakov patotam. Cry out with your full throat without restraint. Raise your voice like a ram's horn. So it's on Yom Kippur. At the end of Yom Kippur, we blow the shofar. Declare to my people their transgression, to the house of Jacob their sin. Sounds like God speaking to Yeshayah the Navi and telling Yeshayah what he is supposed to do, how he's supposed to call out to the people. V'oti yom yom yidroshun, v'dat derachai yechefatzun, kagoy asher tzedakah asadu mishpat Elohav lo azav yishaluni mishpatei tzedek kirvat Elohim yechefasun. To be sure, they seek me daily. They're eager to learn my ways, like a nation that does what is right, that has not abandoned the laws of God. They ask me for the right way. They're eager. So in a sense, what's being said here is Bnei Israel, at least to an extent, sound like they're eager to know the ways of God, to understand the ways of God. In the last chapter, they were belittled. They were told that they were not a very good people. So on the one hand, are they really seeking out God? The implication from this verse is yes, they're seeking out God. But is that really the reality of what they are? Because if they were seeking out God, why would God, in a sense, not listen to them? And what do they do when they speak out to God? They say the following: La matzamnu v'lo ra'ita, aninu nafshenu v'lo teda. We fasted, but you did not see it. We starved our bodies, but you didn't pay any attention. Right? This is what the people are saying, that God is not listening to them. You want us to fast, we mourn, we rip our clothing, but you're not listening to us. Why are we still suffering? And the answer is because on your fast day, you see to your business and you oppress all of your workers. Right? So we want to know, why is it not working? God, you told us to fast. We're fasting. We're doing Enoy. It's Yom Kippur. Look at what we're doing. We're every day we bring sacrifices. We want to be redeemed. We don't want to suffer anymore, and we're seeking out to you, and we're fasting. So why are not we being saved? Where's the redemption that you've spoken about in those previous chapters, Yeshayah? And Yeshayah answers the question that he sort of asked, but it was like on behalf of the people, by saying, you're on your fast days, you are not listening. Continuing in verse 4, because you fast in strife and contention, and you strike with a wicked fist, a growth fist. Your fasting today cannot be heard on high. God's not going to listen to you. What's the point of fasting if you're going to continue in the ways of your wicked ways and your villainous ways? I don't want to listen to you, says God. Is this the fast that I desire? A day for a people to do enoy, to afflict, to starve themselves? Is right, bowing the head, showing that you're meek, is lying in sackcloth and ashes. Do you think that's what God desires? That's the fast that God wants? The answer obviously is no. Now I'll tell you what God desires. You want to fast? This is what you have to abstain from. This is what you need to do. Pateach chartzubot resha, hater agudot mota, v'shalach ritzutzim chofshim, v'chol mauta tinateku. What does God want you to do? Unlock the fetters of wickedness. Untie the yoke, right? Stop abusing, stop punishing, stop imprisoning people. Let the oppressed go free, to break off everyone's yoke, right? If there was slavery or terrible treatment of workers, paying them little to nothing, this is what God wants. Halo faros l'ra'ev lachmecha, va'aniyim merudim tavivayit. Share your bread with the hungry, and take the wretched poor into your home. Ki tireh aron v'chisito, umibsarcha lo tita alam. When you see somebody who's naked, who's unclothed, give them clothing. and don't ignore your own people. So what is being said here? What's being said is, I don't care about fasting. I think I care if you eat or not. And we're going to see this echoed in not that long from now, maybe 6 months, by Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah in the early Second Temple period. But Yeshayah says here, fasting doesn't really matter. And what a moment this is supposed to be teaching us on Yom Kippur morning, when we're fasting, when we're not eating, when we're sitting in shul and we're davening and we're asking God and we're doing al-chait, That's great, but only if it changes who we are as people, only if it changes the way we treat others, only if it means we don't take advantage of the hungry and take advantage of the poor, and just the opposite, that we don't ignore them. We see the problems and we attempt to help them. As we told in verse 8, then your light will burst forth like dawn and your healing will spring up quickly. And God, right, your vindicator will march before you. And God will also be your guard in the back. God will be Ma'asef, will be the one in the back. Az tikra va'adonai ya'anet tishava va'yomer hineni im tasir mitochacha mota shlach etzba v'daber aven. When you do this, then when you cry out, then God will hear. When you plead to God, then God will say, hineni. But what do you have to do? Get rid of the abuse. Get rid of the evil speech and the evil hand. V'tafek l'ra'ev nafshecha, v'nefesh na'ana taspia, v'zarach b'choshech orecha, va'afeltcha katzaharayim. Then, when you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy those who, the famished creatures, then your light will shine. Then your gloom will become like noon, like the time when the sun is at its right on the top of the sky, showing off its might and strength. You will leave behind your horrors. It will be light, not darkness. Only when you do these things, when you feed the hungry, when you clothe the naked, when you don't abuse your laborers and your workers, then that's when it will happen. והשפיע בצחצחות נפשך ועצמותיך יחליץ, והיית כגן רבהו כמוצא מים, אשר לא יחזבו מימיו. Then God will guide you. And, you will find, you will not have parched places, right? You will always have what to drink. And you will be strong. You'll be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters do not fail. And very early in the book, if you remember back, Yeshayah had this metaphor about the garden a couple of times, the garden that the people didn't pay attention to, and it was supposed to be Bnei Yisrael. It was supposed to be that they were supposed to, what they were supposed to do for God, and then the garden was destroyed. And here we're being told, if you act properly, then that garden will be a Gan Ravel, will be, in a sense, we can say a little more, will be like a Gan Eden. Verse 12, Pasuk Yud Bet, Uvanu mimcha sarvot olam, Mostei dor vador tikomein, v'kora lecha goder peretz, mishovev netivot lashevach. But some amongst you will rebuild the ancient ruins, and you will restore the foundations laid long ago, and then you will be called the repairer of the walls that were foreign, the restorer of the things that were destroyed, the restorer of habitation from the things that will be destroyed, right? And in a sense, you can understand this Second Temple period, when you guys act properly, social justice, if you act kindly, a society of justice, then you will be able to restore the temple. Then you will be able to bring back everything that you want. It will happen. God will make it happen. And you will rebuild. Im tashiv mishabat raglecha, asot chafatzecha biyom kodshi. If you refrain from trampling the Shabbat, from pursuing your affairs on my holy day, v'karata la Shabbat oneg, and you call Shabbat delight, likdosh Adonai mechubad, that God's holy day you honor it. And if you honor it by not doing your business, not looking into your affairs, not looking to make a deal in shul, not looking to strike bargains, right? There was more of a barter economy back then, and maybe a lot of that went on because technically not using money, we would say today, not writing things. I'm trading this for that. But I think more than just the technicality, what it's trying to say here, at least to me in this verse, where it talks about Shabbat, is you can see Shabbat as a bracha. You could see Shabbat as a klala. I can't do this. I can't do that. Oh, it's so terrible. Woe is me. How horrible it is. God is saying these mitzvot, Yeshayah is conveying to them, they are an opportunity to understand the holiness, to build a society that is one of greatness. And if you ignore the Shabbat, what you're ignoring in a sense is your ability to take a break, which hopefully will explain to you the ability to give your laborers, your workers a break, to understand that they have these needs as well. Built into Shabbat is not only the idea of God creating the world, but also the idea of rest, that everybody needs a rest, that everybody needs a break, that everybody needs to be treated with common human dignity and decency, given that time off to deal with their own affairs, given that time off to breathe for a moment, what Bnei Israel did not have when they were in Egypt under Pharaoh, when they had no control over themselves. And so instead, while this talks about Shabbat, I think it very much you can, as I'm trying, dovetail with the rest of the chapter that speaks of the idea of what God wants is kindness and justness and goodness, a society that's built on foundations of chesed and tzedek, of righteousness and compassion, rather than one about just enriching ourselves and then calling out to God and asking why things aren't good. And the last verse, Az titanag al Adonai v'hir kavticha al bamote aretz v'achalticha nachalat Yaakov avicha ki pi Adonai diber. Then, when you are enjoying with God, you will find God's favor, and God will set you on the heights of the earth, and you will enjoy the heritage of Jacob, your father, because that is what God has spoken. That's what God has promised you. And at least Rashi's of the understanding what this means is you'll have a time when there won't be struggle, when there won't be tzara, there won't be problems. And that's what you will get, in a sense, this messianic period and messianic idea. And so this chapter, it's very interesting to think about that it was chosen for Yom Kippur morning, because I think what the rabbis, by doing so, are trying to tell us ultimately is that God cares less about our prayers than God cares about our actions. We know Judaism is a religion of action, a religion of decency, but the actions can't just be tefillin and not separating things on Shabbat and having a nice lulav. Those things are all important, but at the core of its message, what's being said in this chapter is that the fasting and the prayer are all external acts that are supposed to change us internally in the way we behave and the way we act to others. And so the rabbis, I believe, chose this for Yom Kippur for a very important reason, to say, this day is a day when we're fasting, when we're afflicting. But unless there is real change in behavior and in perspective, the fast is going to fall on deaf ears. And I think it's a very important chapter. It's a very important moment for sort of what's at the core of the book of Yeshayah. And we need to remember, even beyond this is that the Tanakh, just in general, is a book about building a just society. That's what the Tanakh is about at its core. How are we going to build a just society? How are we going to have a society whose foundations are mishpat u'tzedakah, v'chesed, justice and righteousness and kindness? And if we don't build that, then it's all pointless. And thus on Yom Kippur morning, when we're trying to get kapara, the rabbis are telling us that ultimately that's what it's all about. Build that society, make it a place of justice, make it a place of kindness, make it a place where anybody can benefit and nobody will be ignored and nobody will be mistreated. And then the full kapara will happen, and the redemptive aspects that are spoken about in all these chapters will come to pass.